Smart 24, driving business.
Hi there, and a very warm welcome to the program. Thank you so much for tuning in and for joining us this morning. This is Smart 24 TV. We drive your business, and my name is Anthony Sabale. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sabale, and you can of course get to our Twitter handle as well on Smart 24 TV at Smart 24 TV now for all your latest business content. It's a Tuesday. And of course, I'm very excited that you are choosing to tune in to the number one financial market show here in East Africa, where we can break down for you the current market performances as they are at the moment. It's a Tuesday, and of course, we get to look back and reflect on Monday we got started and how we can push ahead, of course, for the rest of the week. And I'm so glad you are joining us today. The show is probably brought to you by the Altex East Africa platform, and Altex East Africa is a trading platform, especially for you who are interested in investing in the fixed income securities or the treasury bonds here in Uganda. Now, the market is now accessible using mobile money. That is through Zabu initiative, where Altex East Africa is saying you can now go to your phone and dial *292#, and you can follow the prompts and be able to, first of all, register. Secondly, you can learn more about the products, and thirdly, you can do the actual trading on Altex East Africa on all the bonds here in East Africa, in Uganda, in Kenya, and in Tanzania. Altex East Africa is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda and is proudly the sponsor of this show and bringing you the latest on the financial market business here in East Africa. Let's get right into the business of the East African stock exchanges. But before we do that, let's have a look at the rest of Africa and see how we fared on Monday. Ghana Stock Exchange, on average, most of the stock exchanges really ended with losses, especially looking at the benchmark indices on all these stock exchanges. Let's take a case in point, Ghana. Now, in Ghana Stock Exchange, we just had quite a few equities participate in trade. Looking at the summary here, at least just 18 listings participated, with the day ending 2 gainers and just about 1 loser. The gainers were still Guinness Ghana Breweries at a 10% appreciation, and Unilever Ghana at a 9.85% appreciation. And the only equity that lost was Standard Chartered Bank, losing at least 0.08%. On Monday, Ghana Stock Exchange has close to about 38 listings on their main board of the exchange, and currently is still one of the biggest stock exchanges in West Africa, coming behind Nigeria and the like. So, coming of course from an informed point of view, we are seeing Ghana Stock Exchange really slide in the recent past. The stock exchange all share index has been currently valued at least over about, let's see, 2,571 points. Now, this is a fluctuation from about an average of 2,600, 2,700 in the last 2-3 weeks. But before this, the index was way below 2,600. And to be very specific, in the month of March, at least by the start of the month of March, the company's all-share index was at a baseline of at least 2,400 points. And before that, still, it was between 2,400 and 2,600. But now we are looking at 2,500 at the moment, 2,571 points on the Ghana Stock Exchange. That's, of course, depicting the picture there in Ghana's biggest stock exchange. Well, let's have a look at Johannesburg Stock Exchange as well. Johannesburg Stock Exchange is not only the biggest and busiest stock exchange in Africa, but it's also the principal stock exchange of South Africa, and also one of the oldest stock exchanges in the land. It currently has about 512 equities, 422 to 512 equities listed, and that makes it, of course, the biggest high listings as well in the African continent. Now, the current market value, looking at Monday tradings, was at least about 308 million shares traded at exactly about 17.13 billion rand, South African rand. And this is after the data that was revealing a loss of 11% in the volumes comparing Monday's trade to Friday. And the current market capitalization of the exchange is 20 trillion rand on the South African market. On Monday, the day closed with 308 listings participating in trade, and 212 gainers were registered, and at least about 82 losers as well were registered on the market. Ellie's Holdings led the top gainers with a gain of 18.18% appreciation in price, closing up at a price of 0.13 rand, South African rand there. Let's have a look at Ellie's Holdings. Ellie's Holdings is an investment company. It's a holding company that deals in the business of manufacture, trade, and of course, distribution of diverse range of products and services, inclusive of DTT, as well as satellite television products and related accessories, electrical gadgets, signal distribution, residential and commercial LED lighting solutions. The company currently holds at least over about 105 million rand in market capitalization, and this makes the company the 371st most valuable equity there. Yes, the ranking really seems quite sad, but it's not as bad comparing the cost to the total, which is about 422 listings on the main board of the South African Stock Exchange. Now, Ellie Holdings yesterday gained 0.01 rand and closed at a price of 0.14 South African rand, which was the biggest gain for the day. They had about 1.01 million shares traded, and these were valued at 131,933,000 rand, the South African rand that was actually traded on the South African market. On the losing side, South Africa, the company that lost most value was Visual International Holdings. Visual International Holdings lost close to about, 50%. Quite a huge amount of value in just a single day, to close at a price of 0.01 South African rand. Now, what is Visual International Holdings? Visual International Holdings is a property development company. And you know, the property development business is quite volatile and fluctuates, in terms of, the assets and so on and so forth. It's really liable to most of the, external factors in the market. The company's head office is in northern suburbs of Cape Town, and Visual focuses on all aspects of property development and is proud to have been involved with numerous successful residential, commercial, as well as retail projects. Currently, Visual International Holdings currently holds a stock of about 4.1 million South African rand, and this makes it the 420th most valuable stock on the South African Stock Exchange. Yesterday, it dropped by 0.01 South African rand to 0.02 South African rand, and this was almost 100% drop, or 50%, no matter how you calculate that. There definitely comes into something to do with how much this stock really costs. When you look at this, the change, it looks slight, but based on the pricing and when you calculate the percentages, it really appears to be a very, very huge loss. This is why it's very important that we get to calculate percentages for all our stock market calculations. They give us a picture of what is really happening in every portfolio, in every investor's pockets, and what's happening in the company's stock as we speak. So Visual International lost most value on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Regarding the performance of the JSE benchmark index, that is the 203, the J203, it moved up by 507 points and closed at 78,175 points, one of its biggest movements. This currently brings down the weekly losses to 0.2%, and the weekly or 4-weekly losses at least at 0.79% depreciation, and the overall year-to-date gain of 7.02%. That's the trading, my friend, from South Africa. South Africa is the biggest market, and you should be very interested in the matters happening in South Africa. It's not only the biggest stock exchange, but it's in the biggest economy, one of the biggest economies in Africa, and so you should be very, very interested in what's happening down there. Moving on, Nairobi, we are going to look at Nairobi later on, and Nigerian Stock Exchange really beat the odds and gained 181.20. Yes, kudos to Nigeria, and this was after a very volatile day of trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, with over 116 equities listed participating in this particular trade. 31 gainers were registered at the end of the day, and over 15 losers as well were taken note of in the day's trade. Ikeja Hotel led the gainers with a gain of 9.85% up to a price of 2.23 Nigerian nairas per share closing the day, and Academy Press had about 9.8% appreciation in price, whereas the Prestige Insurance Company added 9.76% on their stock value, and NPF Microfinance Bank added close to about 9.71% as well. For the biggest losers on the market, at the bottom came the MCR Nigeria company, which came up last with an end of day price depreciation of at least 9.71% and closed at a price of 2.79 Nigerian naira per share on the market. Sovereign Trust Insurance as well dropped about 8.89% of their trading price on Monday. Nemeth International Pharma, the pharmaceutical listed there in Nigeria, lost at least 7.33%, whereas Agrova lost about 6.95% on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Now, regarding the performance of the stocks via the volumes, Zenith Bank led the movers with a movement of 53.4 million shares that were traded on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, followed by Access Holdings at least 48 million shares, and the United Bank of Africa at a 31.1 million shares volume that was traded as well on the market. AXA Mansard Insurance at least traded about 23.6 million shares on the Nigerian market. That's it from the rest of Africa. Let's come back home in East Africa and start off with the Uganda Securities Exchange. Uganda Securities Exchange currently holds about 18 listings in total. In 8 of these cross listings, mainly from Nairobi, and 10 of these are domestic listings. Well, Monday looks to be a better day of trade. Yes, in as far as, first of all, the market capitalization is concerned, and in as far as participation is concerned. In aggregate, there were 3 equities that participated in trading. Now, these 3 equities that participated were mainly our common usual faces, the MTN Uganda stock, Stanbic Bank Uganda, and the Rumene Limited company. At the moment, there were only 5 gainers on the market and close to about 4 losers as well. The East African Breweries Limited came out on top of the gainers list after gaining at least 4.53%, much as this was without participating in the day's trade. East African Breweries Limited currently is valued at 4,028.96 Ugandan shillings per share, and Rumene is at 2.33% appreciation in price, closed off at 440.00 Ugandan shillings per share. Well, Rumene seems to be still coming back upwards. Remember last week slightly pulled over. It's probably one of the highest trajectories of gains in the history of the Uganda Stock Exchange, and it's slightly pulled back. It seems to be coming back to the former rest of the gains in the pricing. And yesterday, after trading a record over 3.9 million shares, 3.78 million shares to be specific, the company added at least about 2.33% to its value, closing off the day with 440.0 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments also gained 2.01% at a closing price of at least about 222.81 Ugandan shillings. MTN Uganda as well added close to 1.67% and closed off the day with 167.75 Ugandan shillings per share. NMG also added about 0.71% value and closed at 438.05 Ugandan shillings per share. These were the big five gainers of the day on the Uganda Stock Exchange. On the bottom losing side, the Equity Bank Limited stock unfortunately came at the bottom after losing about 3.1% of their trading price down to 1,047.80 Ugandan shillings. KCB lost about 0.86% value down to 838.24 Ugandan shillings. And Kenya Airways lost about 0.22% down to about 103.56 Ugandan shillings per share, whereas the Jubilee Holdings Limited stock lost about 0.22% as well, down to at least 4,860.44 Ugandan shillings. Let's get into the details here on Rumema's stock and see where this is heading. Are we getting for another season of gains on Rumema, or this is actually the end of it all? Well, Rumema currently holds about 715 billion Ugandan shillings on the Uganda Securities Exchange in market capitalization. Now, this makes the company at least the currently seventh most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange, with a representation of at least close to 3.99%. Now, Rumema's stock price yesterday rose slightly by 10.01 Ugandan shillings. And this was a 2.33% improvement up to a price of 440.0 Ugandan shillings. Like I mentioned earlier, the volumes that were traded were 3.78 million shares valued at 1.66 billion. Now that's a pretty huge turnover for a company like Rumema currently. Now we have about 1.62 billion shares and you have 715 billion market capitalization. You can imagine just having in a single day at least 1.66 billion Ugandan shillings in turnover. That's quite some good value. And I would say it's still not too late for you to trade with Rumema. However, of course, the stock is limited with the current demand that is on the stock. This was after, of course, they did issue a very enticing dividend this year with at least about 63 Ugandan shillings per share that are going to be given out. And this was an approval last week of the shareholders who approved the dividend to be issued at least by the book closure date as communicated by the company. So definitely you still have time for you to be part of the big gains at Rumema Limited. Rumema's stock currently in 1 week performances is at a gain of 0.22%, in 4 weeks at least 10%, in 3 months at least 46.7%, all these gains, and in 6 months about 120% at the moment. Rumema is also notably the second most traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and with the last 3 months of trading having about 29 million shares traded at 11.1 billion Ugandan shillings. Notably, it has the biggest turnover as well within the period, and that is Rumema's stock trading for you there. MTN, pretty much nothing changed. However, the stock price improved by 2.75 Ugandan shillings. So it's good news as well at MTN Uganda, and current stock price is 167.75 Ugandan shillings. Stanbic Bank Uganda stayed at 26 Ugandan shillings. However, notably, it is still the number one most traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and is currently holding close to about about 1.33 trillion Ugandan shillings in market capitalization. Regarding the benchmark index performance, that is the all-share index, the index at least appreciated 0.71 points upwards after, of course, the big five gainers pushed the index. After that, of course, gain on those prices, closing off at 1,042 points. There are 1 week losses, however, of 0.3% on the index and 4 week losses of 6.94%, and yet furthermore, year-to-date losses of 14.05% to be made up for the year 2023. The USE local company index, thank God for the MTN and Women stocks performance, appreciated as well by at least 1.08%, reaching a total of 275.89 closing points, making a 1 week gain of 0.88% and a 4 week loss of 4 week gain of 2.47%, indicating the local stocks, the domestic stocks, are doing way better in the short run than most of the other stocks listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And that's the trading, my friend, from the Uganda Securities Exchange. Allow me, of course, to fly off to Nairobi and have a look at what's happening currently on the busiest stock exchange in the region. Nairobi has over 65, now 66 listings. And currently, when you look at their market performances in aggregate on Monday, there were just about 47 listings participating in trade, and the day ended with 12 gainers and 22 losers on the market. Ever Ready East Africa led the gainers at a 4.63% appreciation in price and closed off at a 1.13 Kenyan shillings per share. It was followed by NCBA Group at a total of 3.68% that was added to the stock's value, and Centum Investments adding about 2.18%, whereas the HF Group added about 1.91%. On the losing side, eGads came in last with an end-of-day price depreciation of close to about 10%, closing off the day at 10.35 Kenyan shillings per share on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, with TPS East African Serena as well losing at least close to 9.63% on the market. The Longhorn Publishers lost 9.62%, and East African Portland Cement at least 8.3%. In as far as the volumes were concerned, Safaricom came out at the top of the movers with a record volume of 2.27 million shares that were recorded here on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Equity Group Holdings came in the second place at 1.35 million shares that were recorded, and these indicated volumes reduction of at least 41%, whereas the turnover declined by 54% as well. Now, regarding the performance of the NSE market indices, the benchmark index dropped 0.77 points downwards to at least 97.75 points, and this is currently a 1 week gain of 5.06% and a 4 week gain, a loss rather, of 9.36 points or percentages in terms of the all-share index, which is the benchmark of performance on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The NSE 25 and the NSE 20 likewise did not perform so well, and these indicate the top 20 and top 25 stocks. The NSE 20 lost 0.43%, whereas the NSE 25 lost 1.16% as well on the market. And that's the trading, my friend, from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Remember to follow us on Twitter and get more of the latest content on business. The Capital Markets Authority is, of course, here with us, and we have the quarterly bulletin here with us to just have a look at the different market segments and how they performed in the first quarter of 2023, which ended in March. Well, I wanted just to pick out the data for the CIS managers, the collective investment scheme managers, before, of course, we go. The UAP-owned mutual company is the top in terms of, is on top of all the asset managers in as far as the assets under management are concerned. In the period ended March, the company had 1.18 trillion worth of funds that are in terms of assets under management under the UAP-owned mutual financial services. The ICE Lion asset managers had about 232 billion, whereas the Britam Asset Managers had about 188 billion Ugandan shillings, and the Zeno Technologies about 50.9 billion Ugandan shillings as well. SBG Securities, the new kid on the block, had about 27.7 billion as well on the assets managed under management within the period ended March 2023. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much for once again tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. I am your host, Anthony. Remember to check out OTEX East Africa and Azabu. Simply go to your phone, dial *292# and experience the magic at OTEX. More money, more hustle. Now, with OTEX East Africa, you can trade on treasury bonds by simply using your mobile money and with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Isn't that something new? That is what OTEX is telling you you can do if you simply dial *292#. And there you go, my friend. It's the Tuesday and the markets are open. Stockbrokers are at work, so you can give your stockbroker a call if you want to get in that trade before 1 p.m. Yes, the time is still on. Trading in Uganda opens at 9 a.m. and closes at 1 p.m. East African Standard Time. So have a very good day of trading. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.